Hi everyone. For today's lesson, let's take a look at how rhyme scheme works throughout poetry and, of course, in Hamilton. Rhymes, of course, are when the end of lines have the same sound, like blame and game. So why do we rhyme? Well, one reason is to amuse people. When rhyming is done, it sounds good. We have lots of slang that rhymes, like shop till you drop. It's catchy. It's fun. It makes things sound musical. It ties things together better. We expect lots of poems and children's books and songs to rhyme, and part of us is waiting for that punchline, for that rhyme, for that tidying up the end of this. It also helps with memorization, helps with remembering the next line and what we're supposed to do here. When words are rhymed, they're connected, which can also help strengthen associations between this idea and that idea, or put them in contrast, like shop till you drop, which end up being opposites. Sure. To strengthen the form, so many forms of poetry, like sonnets and limericks and couplets, some of which we'll look at, are dependent on a rhyming form and put a shape in our heads because we can see where the ends are on the lines and so on. So those are all things that are deepened and strengthened by adding rhyme, and music follows the same patterns that poems do. Let's look at some terminology. When the last word in a line rhymes with another last word in a line, that's called an end rhyme. We go to the end of the line and then we put a rhyme, and then next. When the rhyme happens in the middle of the line, it's called an internal rhyme. So here we've got a poem by Coleridge. The fair breeze blew, the white foam flew. That would be internal rhyme, right? The furrow followed free, fun with alliteration, which would be all those F sounds. We were the first that ever burst, internal rhyme, into that silent sea, whereas free and sea would be end rhymes, right? True rhymes, actual rhymes, versus off rhymes or slant rhymes. Okay. Is it a real rhyme that really properly, completely rhymes? Smart and art, fellow and yellow, surgery and perjury. You absolutely can have multi-syllable rhymes like that, and once again, they could be perfect or true rhymes. I've heard one-syllable ones like smart and art called masculine rhyme, and multi-syllable like surgery and perjury, or fellow and yellow, called feminine rhyme. I'm not sure why. Some amount of sexism, I expect, in that the poets inventing these terms were presumably male. The multi-syllable rhyme, and you could call it that, admittedly, often tends to have the response of being funny. I shoot the hippopotamus with bullets made of platinum because when I used leaden ones, his hide is sure to flatten 'em. Who can write about the toucan? You can. Multi-syllable rhyme just often tends to be funny. Maybe because it's awkward and unexpected and has to be shoved in there. Well, regardless, you can have single syllable or multi-syllable rhyme. Single is more common, but Lin-Manuel Miranda sure likes his multi-syllable rhymes. By the end of Hamilton, we know that he has tried every single rhyme for Burr, comma, sir that he could possibly come up with. The Bursar, General Bursar. Are you sure, sir? It just goes on and on and on, which again, they usually come out at least a little witty. All right. You can also have slant rhymes, rhymes that are close but not exact. Fate and saint, work and spark. It sounds kind of right, but not completely. And of course, Hamilton has plenty of those too. Insane man, to get you to the mainland. They sound pretty darn similar, but technically one ends in a D and one doesn't. So that would be a slant rhyme. Okay. How do slant rhymes pull this off? They use a lot of assonance and consonants. Assonance is when you're using the same vowels. If they all have a long E. Sing? Really? I don't know about that, but lean and beat have assonance because they both make a long E sound. Mainland, insane man, the vowels are the same, clearly. Boat, bone, and mole all have that O sound. There, I would agree. Consonance is similar consonant sounds. Insane man, mainland. We've got all those N's as well as all those A's that really tie it together and make us feel like it's rhyming, even though it's not quite there. Book and back have those B's and those K sounds, so the vowel we might possibly overlook. So off rhymes can be used instead of true rhymes. They tend to be a little subtler. They tend to be pushing things a little, stretching credibility, but sometimes they just fit together. And of course, Miranda gets to put in some very colorful, very clever language as he's gluing all these words. And of course, off rhymes give you more options. Once you've used up all the rhymes between burr, sir, and anything that goes with it, maybe you need to stretch a little further. Maybe there aren't that many words that rhyme with Hamilton, so you're gonna have to push it. And something like mainland is, has a little bit of the sound to it. People are rhyming heart and apart, although I'd call that a real rhyme. Heaven, oh, that's the point they're making. You could rhyme heart and apart. You can rhyme heaven above and love, but eventually people are going to be bored. So maybe you rhyme above with bow or something that sounds kind of close but isn't 100% because everything has already been rhymed before. Please don't bore us to death. Alrighty. Rhyme schemes. How do we label rhyme schemes when doing proper analysis of poems, of songs, of whatever we've got going? Well, you can see it with Itsy Bitsy Spider, that every time you've got a new sound, a new ending, you put a new letter. Spider, A. Spout, that's a new one, so we put B. Rain, that's a new one, so we put C. Out rhymes with spout, so we put a B. Gather ye rosebuds while you may, A. Old time is still a-flying, B. And the same flower that smiles today, A. Tomorrow will be dying, B. Alrighty. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating her curds and whey. Along came a spider and sat down beside her and frightened Miss Muffet away. Muffet, A. Tuffet, A. Whey, B. Spider, C. Beside her, C. That would be perfect multisyllable rhyme, obviously. And frighten Miss Muffet away, B. Rhymes with way. Of course, it's an actual homophone, a word that sounds the same to the ear, homo, same, phone sound, but is spelled differently when we have way and way with the two different spellings. You could also have a homograph where the word like sound and sound is spelled the same and pronounced the same, but means two different things. I've also seen those called identical rhymes because sound and sound sure look identical, whereas way and way are homophones, but they're not exactly identical. Of course, if you tie homophones together or homographs together, like sound and sound, they're even more closely tied together, going back to all those reasons for making rhymes. Here's a Shakespeare sonnet. You've ever heard of sonnets? They all have the same pattern. They're all 14 lines long, and an English sonnet, also called a Shakespearean sonnet, follows this rhyme scheme: A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. And if you say that to a poetry expert, they can go, okay, I understand what that means when you say A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D. That would be like sun, red, done, head, and then you switch to a new set and do white cheeks, delight, reeks. Okay. This is also a subversive, fascinating sonnet that parodies the, oh, your lips are as sweet as wine and your eyes sparkle like diamonds and your hair is like spun gold, to actually, my girlfriend really doesn't look like that. You guys are all fantasizing too much, but okay. And then it ends with two of the same, rare and compare. This is called a couplet when you have two rhyming lines, and they work as a punchline, especially in this kind of a poem, where you've got sets. A paragraph in poetry is called a stanza. So we've got 4, 4, 4, and each of those is considered a set. And maybe within the little set of 4, they make 1 point like a paragraph would. And then after our 12 lines of setup, we have a 2-line punchline of some sort. And couplets, which sometimes have appeared just by themselves, can really be a witty punchline. It's often called an epigraph if you've just got like a humorous little poem there. One I really enjoyed, Oscar Wilde wrote for the Prince of Wales dog collar, and for the collar they put on this dog, it was written, I am His Highness's dog at Kew, which was short for Kew Palace. Tell me, sir, whose dog are you? As in, I am so much better than all the other dogs out there. So, fun with couplets. So, as I said, this is the traditional way to mark up a poem. Rhyme scheme, limerick. All limericks, in fact, have the same rhyme scheme. What is a limerick? It is a poem that has this kind of a rhythm and rhyme and sentence structure to it. There was an old man of the coast, who placidly sat on a post, but when it was cold he relinquished his hold and called for some hot buttered toast. All limericks are A, B, B, A. Yeah, with that length of line. My favorite limerick, just to get that in there. There once was a man from Milan, whose verses never would scan. When they said, but the thing doesn't go with the swing, he said, yes, but I like to get as many words into the last line as I possibly can. Funny because it breaks the structure. There we go. All right, so that was some basics about what I mean when I'm talking about rhyme and what some of the terms are. All right. Moving on with a new list. Sorry about the pop-up. Alrighty. Types of rhyme schemes. When you alternate lines A, B, A, B, back to the Shakespeare, going up, sun, red, done, head, or alternating lines, then that is called alternate rhyme. Okay, not a big shock. Coupled rhyme or a couplet would be AA. If we have AA, BB, CC, I could call that coupled rhyme, or I could call it a lot of couplets, all in a row together. Sure. Monorhyme is when every line has the same ending. This is unusual in poetry because, it's going to bore people and so forth, but you could if you wanted to. Enclosed rhyme is when it looks like a sandwich because you've got one kind on the outside and one kind block it in on the inside. Limericks have the one kind on the outside, Milan, as many words in the last line as I possibly can, And then on the inside, we've got thing and swing. Sure. Simple 4-line rhyme, A, B, C, B, is seen in a lot of folk songs and popular poems and children's poems. That's a very common one. And chain rhyme, you're connecting your little stanzas by each letter that you set up is going to show up again in the next stanza. What you're seeing here, ABA, BCB, is called terza rima, and Dante's Inferno was written in it. It can be tough because, of course, you don't want to write yourself into a corner. So there's some more vocabulary for us. Alrighty. So next, we've got our textbook. And here we are in the rhyme section. Alrighty. End rhymes, which we just learned, the end of the line and the end of the other line match up. What I noticed is in what comes next, the king is doing some very conventional rhymes because he's the most conventional singer. He's singing Beatles-style songs, which are often called British Invasion. Ha, ha, ha. Aren't we making a funny joke there? But they specifically pair up in a very conventional, traditional way. Awesome. Wow. Do you have a clue what happens now? He's pretty straightforward as opposed to the character of Hamilton or Angelica, who are just stuffing so many words in and doing slant rhymes and doing internal rhymes and doing all kinds of clever things because their minds are spinning so fast. Alrighty. I rhymes. These look the same but are pronounced differently, like bow and rough. You're not really going to see those in songs and things that are read aloud because what would the point even be? That's just annoying. And you wouldn't notice it even. But when you see them on a piece of paper, they're there to mess with your mind, like the dove dove, and see if you're paying attention. I discussed that multi-syllabic rhyme and all the funs with Bursar. In Nonstop, Hamilton rhymes amendments and independence, emphasizing that he can do a correct rhyme using all those different syllables, all those different letters, and get it to line up. Hidden or concealed rhymes. If you pay very close attention, you can spot the rhyme, but they're not in an obvious place and they don't obviously rhyme, and the song hasn't set up that they have to rhyme. So you have to be noticing very, very carefully to see that this is happening. The best he can do for the revolution is turn in, go back to plantin' tobacco in Mount Vernon. Turn in is the start of the line, but if you look carefully, it does rhyme with Mount Vernon, which is also distracting because Mount Vernon has the extra mount in front of it, but turn in and Vernon, yeah. Identical rhymes, when you're rhyming the exact same word twice. Lafayette asks, you want to fight for your land back? You got to get your right-hand man back. We're rhyming back and back, sure. This, of course, works as repetition, extra emphasis, gives it an extra push. Internal rhymes. When it's inside the middle of the line and rhyming with something at the end. First cabinet battle, Jefferson, who is trying to be cool, tells Hamilton, our debts are paid, I'm afraid. Don't tax the South because we got it made in the shade. Paid, afraid, made, shade. Those all rhyme with each other, however they're spelled, clearly, including with an extra syllable, still counts as perfectly rhyming. So we've got 2 internal and 2 at the end of the lines. And it all gets an extra rhythm, extra punch because of all these syllables and patterns together. Alrighty. Oops. Interwoven rhyme is when it's showing up at the beginning of one rhyme pair, at end of one rhyme pair, and the beginning of another, which once again helps to tie the line together more creatively and more densely. Here we've got Hercules Mulligan, who Miranda said had one of the coolest rapper names in all the colonies. Lock up your daughters and horses, of course. It's hard to have intercourse over 4 sets of corsets. You notice course shows up 3 times with 3 different meanings in 3 different kinds of words, and it's mixed into things. You have to pull it out of intercourse and pull it out of corsets. But also, my point was that it's at the end of line 1, then it's in the middle of line 2, then it's near the end of line 2. And all this, once again, ties it all together, but also shakes it up. You feel like you have to work harder to listen and pay attention to this. It's bumpy, it's unusual, it's complex, it's interesting. And all that is the sort of thing that really sets Hamilton apart from the more typical traditional musical songs, which end up being more like King George, where it's just these end rhymes. Masculine rhyme is 1-syllable rhyme, also called monosyllabic rhyme. You've been freed. Do you know how hard it is to lead? As I said, the king does pretty straightforward, traditional, not wacky and creative rhyming. Rich rhymes. These are using homophones that have different spelling, but the same sound, like raise and raise. Ironically, the first raise means to make higher, and the second raise means to tear down. In the Adams administration, a song that was cut, or almost entirely cut, but you can get it on YouTube if you're curious, Hamilton rhymes nuisance and nuisance, which clearly different spellings, different meanings, but same sound to them. And then he adds no sense, which is a slant rhyme, but once again adds that complexity. You have to think harder, you have to pay attention more. These are not easy rhymes, these are not fall asleep while you're listening. These are complicated and have lots of stuff in them. Slant rhymes. Close but not entirely correct, using assonance, vowel sounds, or consonants, consonant repeats, to make you feel like it's pretty close in rhyme. Slant rhyme has been popular nowadays because, as I said, all the traditional rhymes have been done before. We're bored with them. We'd like to move on to something more complex, more edgy, more interesting, something that doesn't have to be perfect, but showed that you tried, that you added a little creativity here. I should add that if you go to rhymezone.com and type in whatever word you want, it will give you every actual rhyme it can think of, starting with the most common ones in bold and then going into the really obscure words nobody uses. But it would take a human brain, human cleverness, and noticing of stuff to do a slant rhyme, which is just more creative, more original, more thought power than just going to the rhyming dictionary and having it give you all the rhymes for all, which could rhyme with tall or ball or fall. Yeah, we're bored already, aren't we? All right, it can also, back to slant rhymes can symbolize being uncertain, being uncomfortable, being not totally sure what to do here, things aren't quite fitting together. And it can also be humorous because we, the audience, of course, know that our heroes are trying to rhyme things and we're expecting it to rhyme. And when it doesn't quite rhyme, we can all have a laugh together. Okay. Insane Man and Mainland, which I mentioned several times, or Despondent and Correspondence. obviously very close in those sound patterns of the last few syllables, and close enough to make us feel like he got us most of the way there, even if it isn't a perfect rhyme. So that's a lot of the different rhyme schemes, a lot of the different complexities that we've got going on. So let's take a closer look at rhyming patterns, and let's try the first song, the overture, even though this song really is complex and has a lot going on. All right, Aaron Burr asks, how does a bastard orphan son of a whore and a Scotsman dropped in the middle of a forgotten spot? Well, right there we can hear a lot, can't we? Because as you can see in the bold, orphan and whore have that assonance and consonants that are going to call them a near rhyme. Yes, you can pull out just one syllable, especially when there's a big pause in the pattern for it. I would say first line ends with A, as in a Scotsman, so I put an A for our first ending. Forgotten, our second line ending is going to get a B. Scotsman, dropped, forgot, obviously share the ah sound, assonance, and a lot of consonants together, so that's that bouncy pattern there. And then we've got our starting, ending a line with the ah, just to start the next line with the ah, because we can. And again, tying these things better together by doing it, and we're going to call that an interwoven rhyme. Dropped in the middle of a forgotten spot. Okay. Providence is likewise keeping the ah sound going, but now we've got the P and the V, which of course is reflected in impoverished, which is those two words are keeping a lot of the same sounds going. In squalor. So spot, providence, impoverished, squalor are slowly guiding us through to a different ending. Forgotten and squalor don't have a lot in common, but that was a lot of similar sounding words bridging between the two. Okay, then. And scholar, just plain old rhymes with squalor, multi-syllable rhyme, but plain ordinary rhyme, so they both get a C. Okay then. This pattern is not really going to keep up. Why? Because he's trying to vary things. He's using a lot of complexity. We don't get to just sit back, relax, and listen to A, B, C, B, or something really boring like that. As I said, maybe when King George is in the house, but not for these guys. The $10 founding father without a father. Obviously, a rich rhyme or an identical rhyme as we do founding father without a father rhyming, and basically rhyming a very close near rhyme with dollar inside the line. Sure. So this is also internal rhyme and internal near rhyme. Well, father and scholar are close enough that I really could have given that a C, couldn't I have? I chose to give it a D, scholar and father, but it's close. He's really trying to link everything as much as he can. Possibly that should get a C. All right. Got a lot farther. Another one of those words that's really sounding like the other ones we've got. Obviously, in how it looks and the assonance and the consonants, it's basically the same as father. It's just one line, one letter off, and it even is pronounced about the same by working a lot harder. So harder, pretty close to squalor and scholar and father. I mean, they're all pretty similar, aren't they? I decided to put this little tilde here for near rhyme, close. In analysis, we're more likely to just put a C and then explain in our essay about this poem that it was kind of close, but I thought indicating nearly, father, scholar, harder. They're all pretty close. By being a lot smarter, by being a self-starter, and they placed him in charge of a charter. By the way, charge and charter have some repeats, although charge does not have a lot in common with smarter and starter and so forth. So you can see all these patterns. Father, father, farther, harder, smarter, starter, charge, charter. It all really hangs together and is making a pattern, even though the pattern we actually have here is a lot of near rhymes and they're all getting filed under the C ending. Back to squalor and scholar. And every day while slaves, we've got that assonance there, right, between day and slaves with the hard A. We're being slaughtered, and then slaves and slaughtered has the sla there. And carted. Away across the waves. Well, there you can really hear it, right? He struggled and kept his guard up. Guard up and carted are close. I'm just sitting here wanting to give everything they're all kind of the same ending, aren't they? And of course, guard up and part of are darn close to rhyming with each other. So here we've got carted, guard up, part of, barter, which all just kind of rhyme with each other. And of course, barter goes back to a perfect rhyme with charter and starter. There are some people who would give, guard up one letter, part of another letter for being close but not perfect, and match barter with charter. But to me, it seems more logical to point out that these all sound so close to each other instead of it's not perfect. And of course, you've got borrow and barter, which have that same sound again. Ooh, we're going more straightforward. Wow. Even as our brains felt completely stretched to their stretching point, we've just settled a little. Okay. Then a hurricane came. Hurricane came. Obviously, cane and came are very close, near rhymes. And devastation reigned. Internal rhyme with cane, came, rained. Our man saw the future drip, dripping. Internal, lots of consonants and assonants and repetition. Down the drain. Put a pencil to his temple. Those sound pretty similar. Connected it to his brain. So you notice here I am with F, near F, near F, near F. Obviously, drain, pain, and brain are perfect rhymes for each other, and rained is darn close. And he wrote his first refrain, perfect internal rhyme, a testament to his pain. So, step one is good for me. I found all these rhymes and I could write A's and B's and C's. Isn't that wonderful? The next step is if you're writing an analysis essay, what does this mean? What does this cause? What does this result in? And the answer is it ties some of these lines closer together. It ties some of these situations closer together. Like brain and pain, his brain is caught in pain, and we're linking those concepts. But mostly, I'm going to go with it adds so much complexity to this that when we talk about his story, we feel extra complex. This is, in fact, a story about writing his way out of pain and figuring things out for himself because he's so smart. This is a nod to the fact that we are going to be watching a complex show and cannot just go to sleep. And it's about a complex character who's going to do complex things. So this first rap is really emphasizing all these different angles and levels this story is going to be happening on. So that's what I would put if I was asked to analyze not just what is going on with the rhyme scheme, but what is it adding? What kinds of complexities are happening? And I could go on a smaller level too and say slaves and slaughtered, those lines share consonants and assonants and something of an internal rhyme in order to link these two words and emphasize the horrific nature of being a slave. A hurricane came. It sounds like pounding. Cane came. You, just 1 second you're planning the hurricane, and the next second it's there. Boom, boom. And devastation rained, and 1 second later, the island is flattened. It really speeds things up in some places by linking the concepts and showing how close they are to each other. So those are all the kinds of things that you can find going on. And of course, after all these rained, drain, brain, refrain, pain, what do? These are different. I mean, insane man doesn't rhyme with insane, but I found myself thinking that these were so close that I really wanted to do some more darn close to F. Although I could give them their own letter. Insane man, mainland, came and the world's going to know your name. What's your name, man? So we're getting even more complex, but we're still connecting. Yeah, maybe I should have called these all G, but we are still connecting with the previous stanza because this next set of rhymes is so similar to that one. And that's something else I'm really seeing throughout this. I could call it a poem if I wanted, or a rap, or a song. All these sentences are so tied to each other. You can't stop. Nobody gets a breather. Nobody gets a pause. Nobody gets to just put their feet up. Everything is so connected to everything else. So the question is, can you take a Hamilton song of your choice and mark it up? Find the internal rhymes, the multisyllabic rhymes, the assonants, the consonants, the rich rhymes, the identical rhymes. Can you mark A, B, C, D, which clearly is harder than one might expect if one is asking that question about, how many things sound pretty darn close to barter in this poem, and how many patterns can we keep going? So give it a try.